welcome to episode 474 of Retro Encounter, RPG fans' bi-weekly podcast of many topics. I am your host today, Zach Wilkerson, and today we are here to revisit what is gotta be one of the two most controversial topics we've ever had in Retro Encounter history. I think the Essential 10 has certainly gotten us some hate over the years, but I think that our one tier list episode has gotten us a lot of comments, maybe even directed towards me specifically. But today we're going to be talking about Dragon Quest, and we are going to be creating a tier list for the Dragon Quest series. And I'll go into some of the particulars of that in a minute here. But before we do that, let's introduce the panel, starting with you, Aleks Franiczek.
I'm looking forward to a good slime.
I don't even know what to say to that. And also making, again, his illustrious return, Mike Sollosi.
You figured out the easiest ways to get me to come out of retirement are drafts, tier lists, and Final Fantasy Tactics. Congratulations.
I mean, I'm happy to do it anytime. So yeah, I think obviously tier lists are extremely popular on the internet for a reason. People just sort of enjoy debating them and making them. And I really had a great time with the Final Fantasy one, although hopefully this one doesn't go as long. I really hope. But the way that we do this tier list is a little bit particular. So first of all, just sort of from a broad perspective, we're going to be placing 12 Dragon Quest games into a tier list. So the tiers are what you would normally expect. S tier is the top tier, then A, B, C, and D. And you're probably wondering where the number 12 comes from. So because we have, we have three people, we decided that having a number 12 would make sense. And so, but also none of us have played Dragon Quest X because Dragon Quest X is still Japan exclusive, which is very frustrating. So we added into
not even the offline version.
exactly.
I thought that was a layup that would give us that game to
Yeah.
play within 4 years, but it's been much longer.
Yeah, it seems like that perhaps is not going to come to fruition. But two games that have been localized, and I think that they're both popular, and they also kind of have, to me, more of like a traditional Dragon Quest feel in some ways, are Dragon Quest Monsters. So we added the original Dragon Quest Monsters to the list, partially because that was the one that the most people had played. And then we also added in Dragon Quest Rocket Slime, which are Dragon Quest Heroes Rocket Slime, right? I think is what its official title is. And that's just because it's a fun it's a fun game. I've played some hours of it now to prepare for this, and so we'll have those two games along with Dragon Quest 1 through 9, and then of course Dragon Quest 11 will be what makes up our list. The way this is going to work is sort of a weird blend that actually Aleks came up with for our original Final Fantasy tier list episode of a tier list creator and also a draft order. So basically, what will happen is with a predetermined draft order from just a random nonsense thing that I did. um, we will in order go so the first selection, just so everybody knows, will be Sollosi, and then I will select, and then Aleks, and then we'll kind of snake back around. Then it'll be Aleks, and then me, and then Sollosi. And then we'll say like, hey, we think that Dragon Quest, I don't know, 4 belongs in, I don't know, A tier, just as an example. And if everybody agrees with that or doesn't want to do anything about that, it will stay in A tier. However, each panelist has a veto. So essentially, if one of us thinks that Dragon Quest IV does not belong in A tier, we can veto that placement. And then we can actually move it up either to S or down to B. So we can move it up or down in terms of the tier. But we all only have one veto. So we have to be judicious about how we use those vetoes. And then once we've gone through all 12 picks, then we will go through each tier and decide like sort of how we're going to organize them within the tier based on a democratic process. I think that covers everything. You two, do you think I covered the whole process there?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, before other people make comments, why are we only doing the first Dragon Quest monsters? Like, if we did most of those, then a third of the whole tier would just, excuse me, a third of the whole episode would just be Dragon Quest monsters games. But we wanted some representation beyond the main series numbers, and we wanted to get to a nice round number. So there was a lot of discussion before we picked which ones to represent on this show. Just so people.
Yeah, and like being like two spin-off series, I think having one Heroes game, one Monsters game made a lot of sense. And these are just two of the more popular ones and widely played ones. So I think that's good. In terms
And
of
no
the rule,
disrespect towards Dragon Quest Muso or Mysterious Dungeon games, which did come under consideration.
I mean, Mysterious Dungeon does cross over with monsters a little bit, but it is very much its own thing as well. But in terms of the rules, I think one rule that I remember us having, which I'm not sure if we want to keep, but I think is pretty important, is not being able to draft in the same tier
Oh
as
yeah,
the last pick.
yeah, I forgot about that. I
Just
like
just
that
so it
rule.
like
Yeah,
prevents too much of stacking up picks in like a single tier.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I like that rule. I forgot about that, but yeah, I think it's a good one.
I also just don't think it's a great idea for this whole episode to be a group hug right in the middle of A tier.
I think that a lot of games might end up in that general vicinity, but I guess we'll see. Um,
We'll
yeah,
see
so
indeed.
we will see indeed.
Yeah, because even though like I think every Dragon Quest game is precious for the record, but for the sake of good entertainment, I do intend to use every tier fairly equally. Spread these things out, even though my opinion on pretty much all of them is quite high.
Okay, so I think that before we actually get into the tier list, I do want to very briefly, because I know that all three of us have talked about Dragon Quest on this podcast many times, go through our history with the series. Obviously, not talking about favorites because we'll hold that. Um, and I'll go ahead and get started because I think I have the earliest experience with the series. Maybe I think. So I played Dragon Warrior. It was probably my first RPG. It was one of my first games. I was four probably when I started playing Dragon Warrior. I was not playing on my own because there's no possible way that I could have even understood what was happening, especially with that like sort of weirdly broken early modern English they used. And then Dragon Quest 2, and this is amazing because, and I'll talk about this later. I reviewed the remaster or the remake for Dragon Quest 1 and 2. Dragon Quest 2 is the first game that I remember beating pretty much on my own, which seems impossible to me in retrospect because that game is so directionless and has such weird difficulty spikes and the mechanics are all over the place. But then, I've kind of played them since. I'd say that for a long time I would have said that like I prefer Final Fantasy to Dragon Quest in terms of a series, but I don't know, probably right around the time right before I joined RPG Fan, maybe 2017, 2018, I played through pretty much all of them again, and it made me realize that as I've gotten older that I appreciate the rhythms and vibes of Dragon Quest maybe even more than Final Fantasy from a just a consistency perspective. And so, yeah, a huge Dragon Quest fan. Excited to put these in lists. It's going to be painful, I know, to see some of my darlings go into C tier, but that's what we're here for.
Right, I can go next. My history goes back a little bit less further than Zach's does. I started renting the Dragon Warrior games on the NES because during the Super Nintendo era, all I had was an NES. But I wanted to play games like my friends' copies of FF4 and FF6. So I rented each of the four NES ones at least once. Did not get super far into any of them, but was at least intrigued. And then years later in the early 2000s, I'm emulating every RPG I can under the sun. I finally beat um some Dragon Quest games for the first time. I ended up playing Dragon Quests 1 through 3 on the Game Boy Color. That's how I ended up clearing those. And then Dragon Quest 8 came out and all the DS remakes came out, and basically with those I played all of them right when they released and was really having a ball with Dragon Quest, getting deep into the series in the decade of the 2000s. And now to date I've played almost all that are available in English and a couple that are only available in Japanese. But really has become uh a cozy, comforting series for me. Definitely one of my favorites all time. And a comparison I like to make that I've probably said on podcasts before is that like Final Fantasy games are high drama sci-fi fantasy epics. Dragon Quest games still also have that drama, but they're more like comforting fairy tales. And there's value in both types of storytelling. So I mean, people that say that Dragon Quest games are too kiddie or that Final Fantasy games are more serious than Dragon Quest games, I would challenge those notions a lot. But it's a series that I love that more people are discovering every year now that these games are getting wider releases every year.
Yeah, absolutely.
except for Dragon Quest X offline.
Yeah, drives me crazy. And what about you, Alex?
Man, Dragon Quest X seems genuinely cool. Like from what I've seen, I would really like to play that. But anyways, so mine is definitely the most recent history out of you guys. I got into Dragon Quest. First one I actually like played for real was 8. I mean, like I feel like for my generation that was a really monumental release and really kind of broke
I
made
mean,
the series
it was
break through.
monumental for us too, I think.
Oh, I bet. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that's sort of where it started. And then from there, like I grew up with two older brothers, and we were always sharing consoles. But I did get a DS for myself as kind of like my first like little private platform, and that's when I really started getting into Dragon Quest because all those DS remakes of like 4, 5, and 6, and Rocket Slime, and some spin-offs as well, really had a great home on the DS, and I feel like that is also where a lot of people ended up really warming up to the series. And yeah, so playing Dragon Quest on the DS was a very fond experience for me. And then kind of more recently, actually, I've been going through and like just getting to all those older ones that I hadn't played before. In fact, in the last 2 years, I think I played the original versions of 1 to 7. So that was a pretty big task. I didn't play through the whole of all those games, but I did want to just check out the original versions of all those games actually for a separate project. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I have yeah familiarized myself with all these games, have some opinions on them, and we'll get to that in a sec.
Excellent. Okay. And one other thing I want to say from the top for the listeners is that I am aware that there are a variety of different versions of these games. And my general opinion, and I think we all agree on this, is that like we can just kind of approach it however we want. I think it's maybe particularly relevant with the last two Dragon Quest games that just came out in the remake. I certainly have opinions about both of them, which you can actually just go on the internet and read. But I think that we're just going to kind of go on the vibe that makes sense to us. To be honest with you, is kind of where we are with that. So, with that, is everybody ready?
Not really, because I just realized I have the first pick and I still don't know what it's going to be.
Yes, you do, in fact, have the first pick. So I think I already said this, but the draft order, just so everybody's aware, it's going to go in a snake draft order. So Sollosi will have the very first pick. He gets to place whatever he wants, wherever he wants to place it. And then I will pick, and then Aleks, and then we'll kind of turn back around. So Aleks will go twice in a row, and then me again, then Sollosi twice in a row, et cetera, et cetera. So Sollosi has both the first and the last pick, actually. So yeah, whenever you are ready, Mike, I'm ready to hear you.
Well, I remember the Final Fantasy draft started with a very safe, popular game at S tier. So I don't know if I want to do that approach or if I want to invite something that might be a little bit uh of a harder sell. But if I want to follow my heart, then I just want one of my favorites to be in that S tier. So maybe to the surprise of nobody, Dragon Quest 11 is going into the S rank.
That is the least controversial take I can imagine.
Yeah, no veto will be used in this round.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, Dragon Quest 11 is I'll give myself away here a little bit. It's maybe not my favorite Dragon Quest game, but it is just such a distillation and modernization in a way that makes sense. I say modernization, the game came out almost 10 years ago now, but it captures so much of the original vibe. It respects so much of where Dragon Quest came from. I think about that closing credit sequence is still for me, one of the most emotional moments I've had ever playing a video game, which is very simple, just like, hey, here are clips from old Dragon Quest games. I can go look those up anytime I want. But for some reason, like just at the end of that particular journey, the way it hit, I know a lot of people don't love Act 3. I think Act 3 is really, really clever. I like the different ways that it makes you play around with the Dragon Quest battle system in ways that you wouldn't normally have to. And some really interesting challenges. It's beautiful to look at. Music sucks, but other than that, it's just a great game.
I mean, I've talked about this game a lot on this podcast. I even think that it's a real possibility that Yuji Horii like read Marcel Proust and decided he wanted to make a game about nostalgia and memory in a very affecting way. Because like Dragon Quest 11 hits all the notes. It hits Dragon Quest imagery that I love. It's the most refined version of Dragon Quest gameplay that we've ever had. It doesn't have a job system, but the characters comfortably sit in Dragon Quest job archetypes. It is somehow nostalgic and feels very modern at the same time. And even things like story beats and quest rewards feel like they are constantly rewarding the player. It- both gameplay mechanics to the game to the feedback loop to basically every bullet point of this game other than the soundtrack I think is executing at the highest level Dragon Quest ever has. So to me it's the S rank. And I'd be perfectly okay with a couple other games making it into the S rank, but I don't know. I didn't want to chance one of you guys trying to bait me with putting it in B, so I would use my veto early, and I just didn't like that possible outcome. So here it is.
Well, you needn't have worried because there was no possibility of me putting this anywhere but S tier. Because even though I kind of agree with Zach in that this might not be my personal favorite Dragon Quest, I would have a hard time arguing that it isn't like the best, the one that I'd probably first recommend to most people. I think this might even be like the most just perfect RPG I've ever played. And like perfection, I don't think always means like that it's the most interesting or anything like that, but it is just like a perfectly playable game that just absolutely warmed my heart when I played it. This was like my pandemic game, and it was just the breath of fresh air and life and hope that I really needed at that time. And I mean, beyond that, I think it's just like so well balanced, and it gives the player like some like agency in terms of like not really but being able to like avoid random encounters and things like that. Like Act 1, maybe you could critique it for being a little bit easy, but then like how is that a complaint when you can just avoid random encounters and then just go to fights underleveled and still have a bit of a challenge? Or you can even add on those draconian quest modifiers that they have in the game if you're like replaying it, for example. This is just like a perfectly playable and enjoyable game, which just shows like so much expertise of Hori and his team in terms of mastering this craft of the traditional turn-based RPG, and I would always be happy to replay this game. It rules.
Yeah, it's a good one. I haven't played the S version of it yet, and I very much want to. So I'm curious to see what that adds in. And I remember starting it at some point and thinking like, oh, I'm going to play the 2D version. And I'm like, I feel like it loses some of its magic that way. But I still think it's really cool that 2D version exists. It's just like it's just catering to what you, if you're a Dragon Quest fan, I can't imagine someone playing that game as a Dragon Quest fan and being like, eh.
I do appreciate that even if you play the full 3D version, which I did when I replayed it, some of the new content is in these 2D sort of side dungeons. So
Hmm.
Mm.
you do get both flavors if you play it, the base game in 3D on the S version. But whatever, I think this is a game that any RPG fan with the time and inclination should do. Because I say time because this is under most circumstances an 80 plus hour game, and that's not an easy ask. But Dragon Quest 11 is an all timer for me. It's probably my favorite game of the last 15 years or so. That's it. We don't need to say anything more.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so, if I'm understanding our rules correctly now, if I wanted to place something into S tier at this point, I would not be able to do that. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Huh.
Weren't expecting that one.
I actually was not expecting Sollosi to do 11 because I thought that it would be it's such it's an uncontroversial pick, I suppose. But not like my pick that I was going to try to put in S would be controversial either. But I'm afraid Solosi's going to try to mess with me on it.
I have
So
controversial feelings, but I wanted to start it a little bit easy.
I am going to go controversial. And I am going to say that I think Dragon Quest IV belongs in C tier.
Whoa. Ah, hmm. Okay.
Wes, where are you? Wes.
let me justify myself before you guys decide to veto or not. So I think that Dragon Quest IV is interesting for what it is and interesting for the time. But I think that there, besides the sort of fractured narrative element of it, where you play, the Tulun section, I think is really interesting, but it's not, I think, very fun. I think it's annoying. I think that you spend so much time having to do sort of these gimmicky things that I don't think are super interesting or engaging to do. And then I think that the overall narrative, if you take away the epilogue stuff that you get in the DS version, which I think is pretty interesting and pretty good, and I like it. I think if you take that away, I think the story is completely unremarkable. But I understand that the stories in Dragon Quest games generally are unremarkable. But I just feel like if you think about like the systems excellence that you get from some other Dragon Quest games that I hold in higher regard, and the story excellence you get in others, and like just some of the other things that happen with Dragon Quest IV. And I think especially thinking about like the way that you couldn't control party members in the NES version, which I think is just an exercise in extraordinary frustration.
Christo used beat.
Yeah, exactly. I think that while I like Dragon Quest IV a lot, if I'm ranking it as a Dragon Quest game, which at least partially is what I'm doing here, I think it belongs towards the bottom of the list.
I don't agree with that sort of final thesis statement. But um before I get into whether I want to use my veto or not, I think that Dragon Quest IV is almost interesting if you think of it as a reaction to Dragon Quest III.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
think of it as what if the fighter and soldier in my party? What if we learned about what happened to them before they joined the hero? And what if the game's villain had his own journey just like the heroes, and we and that informs the final confrontation. And even though this game is from what, 89 or 90, that those opening setup chapters where you learn about the hero's companions and then recruit them in reverse order, I think is a narrative trick that is cool even in 2025,
Yeah.
experiencing it very late. I don't remember exactly what year we did episodes on it, but we did do 2 episodes of Dragon Quest IV um some years ago. I don't remember exactly when, I'm sorry. But I remember feeling like that some of the like design choices they made still felt good, even though the game was at this point probably 30 plus years old. So I think that if I was putting this into a tier list on my own with nobody else present, I probably would put Dragon Quest IV in A tier. um, but if someone felt very strongly, I wouldn't fight it going into S or B. But
Mhm.
I'm concerned C is too low. But I would still have some thoughts to think.
Yeah, I'm really with you, Sollosi, and something that I heard said about this game, which like my opinion on it was already pretty high going in, but basically like this is like the first like true JRPG, um, because like while the first three Dragon Quest games like established like what a JRPG was in terms of like its structure and its core kind of turn-based game design. um, it's like kind of simplification of like a lot of the things it was borrowing from Western RPGs. This one is like the one that put characters first for the first time, and we see that not only in the protagonists who all get their own like individual chapters, which I think are, it's not like grand nuanced storytelling in a way, but it is like very structurally unique in that like you're not just kind of like tasked with hunting for orbs or something like that as you are in kind of like Dragon Quest 3, but your motivations and your goals and kind of like the triggering criteria of how to progress is measured by like the goals of your characters, which is like really really cool. And the fact that all of these chapters feel distinct in that regard, and then you're just like kind of like embodying these characters' lives, like breaking out of the castle and like Alina's chapter, or like doing the merchant stuff in Tornacos, which yeah, it's not like the most fun thing, but I think it's incredibly interesting. Um, I just have like a really high opinion of that kind of stuff, and beyond that, like I played some of the original version of this, and yeah, not controlling party members kind of blows. But like the DS version, I had a great time with it. I thought it was really nicely balanced. I think like even though you don't get like that customization aspect, you get in a lot of the vocation based Dragon Quest games. Just the fact that you can like switch party members and explore like different combinations of the parties, I think is still allows room for like replayability and things like that. And yeah, C tier. Oh my god, that's low for this one.
I mean, I hear all your points, and I think that a lot of them are talking about it from like a what was it in 1990 perspective, which I respect. But I don't know. I'm kind of looking at it from like a do I want to replay this game again ever perspective, and the answer is no, not really. And it's because I just don't think there's a lot to distinguish it, outside of like the interesting design choices for 8990. I think that it's just I don't know. I just think it's kind of a pretty good game.
I mean, I just looked it up. We did those episodes in early 2021, and and that was the last time I played this game because I played it on the NES many years ago, then the DS in the 2000s, and then replayed the DS version in 2021. And every time I played it, I liked it. I mean, I know that it had more impact in say 1991, but in 2021, the chapter system at least was narratively interesting and got me more attached to these side characters when I don't think there had been that level of attention to a full cast before in a JRPG, which Alex alluded to a short while ago. You know, out of respect to Wes and others who love Dragon Quest IV, I am going to use my veto way earlier than I planned to, and I'm going to bump
Haha,
this up to B.
success.
Ugh.
For the record, I actually thought it belonged in B tier, but I
Yeah,
win.
I know. That's exactly what I did with FF8 and FF10 in the Final Fantasy draft. I knew it was a trap, and I decided to fall for it.
Yeah, if
Yes.
you didn't do it, I would have Sollosi. So thanks for
I
using your
thought
veto.
I was gonna. I didn't want Zach to be like a I'm gonna lock it in, guys. Only for like Alex and I to be staring each other in a Mexican standoff. I didn't want that. I didn't want that.
Well, good.
If this is the good, the bad, and the ugly, Zach, I'm afraid you're Angel Eyes in this scenario.
Yeah, I appreciate that. He's the best character, so it's good.
No. Tuco's the best character, and I'm obviously the ugly. So come on, I got a face made for radio. Don't disrespect Eli Wallach like that.
I mean, your favorite Dragon Quest character is Yangus, right? So, I mean,
There
I
you go.
love that guy, but he's not exactly a looker. I'll say that much.
It's what's inside that counts.
It's the accent that counts. All right, well, now that I caused Sollosi to burn his veto, we now have Dragon Quest 11 in S tier, Dragon Quest 4 in B tier. Alex, it is time for your first of two picks in a row.
All right, so I got two in mind here, and I guess I'm gonna do both of them. And they might both seem like veto bait, but I swear only one of them is. And I'll just start with that one. So I said it. Dragon Quest 8 was my first, and I do like it. But after playing everything else, I'm gonna slot it into B tier. Methinks.
Oh no, veto. A tier.
Um,
Veto.
which yeah,
Good job baiting me,
I think
but
it's
there's no
more
way I
A
was letting that
tier.
stand.
Yeah. I think it's an A tier game. I have a pretty high opinion of it, but I don't think it's S tier, and I don't want to see it in S tier. Because even though this is a very, very, fun, solid RPG, it's also just the jack of all trades, sort of master of none Dragon Quest game. It's got good character designs for its main party. But the actual characterizations, other than Yangus, I'll give you that Sollosi, is pretty much nothing new in terms of actual characterization. The story is like nice. It's good enough. It's fine. Graphically was obviously the big selling point at first, but I think now that we have Dragon Quest 11, it's a lot less kind of unique in that regard. I think like even when I first played this game, like I was in FF head, much like you guys at first before I ever got into Dragon Quest. And I don't think I was really ready for Dragon Quest kind of more less cinematic, more kind of down to earth approach to storytelling. So I didn't like really love this game the first time I played it, even though like I thought I had a good time with it. There was no denying that. I am very much looking to eventually replay it because I've only ever played it that one time, being my first Dragon Quest game. So I still doubt that I would think it S tier upon a replay, but yeah, for now, I'm just like gonna bait that veto out of you, Zach.
Congratulations, you win. There's no way I was letting that stand because I personally would probably rank Dragon Quest VIII slightly ahead of 11. And for a couple of reasons. One, I think that for me, like I know that a lot of people like the battle system in 11 a lot, and I do too. But I think that the actual combat mechanics in Dragon Quest VIII, especially, and this is partially speaking from a person who did like the 3DS version of it, where you have all those really crazy combat challenges, which I think are harder than anything else in other Dragon Quest games, where you really have to think about like the way the tension system works. And I think the tension system is more interesting than, I can't remember what they call it in 11. Um, but I just think it's just there's more to manipulate with it. There's more to think about with it. I think
I forewent a second Sun Crown just to have a second Timbrel of Tension in 8 3DS just to beat those challenges.
right, exactly. I mean, those temporal tensions are really good. Those two additional characters I think are really delightful in that. I think the soundtrack. I hate to say this, but I actually really like the 8 soundtrack.
Mhm.
I think that and maybe it's just because like it was the orchestral version that we got in the West, and I just think that overworld theme is beautiful. And graphically, I totally disagree. I think Dragon Quest VIII's graphics are still I think it's still the best looking Dragon Quest game. I think that the cell shading is really stunning, really beautiful. I think that the conceit of chasing Dual Magus, while simple, I think Dual Magus is a great antagonist. First of all, I think he is probably my favorite antagonist. Well, I don't know about that. He's one of my favorite antagonists in Dragon Quest, and I think that he's just really compelling. I think it's a great opening. I think that maybe the last quarter of it fumbles a little bit, but I love the Dragon Trial stuff, even outside of the combat element of it. I think is fantastic. Yeah, I really like Dragon Quest VIII, but I respect the hustle. Well done, Alex.
Thank you, thank
Because
you.
if it was an A, I might have let it stand, but there's no way, no way.
I don't know. I probably land in between you guys on this. I think that Dragon Quest 8 belongs in A tier. So I wasn't even if I had a veto, I probably wasn't going to bump it from B to A because I acknowledge a lot of Alex's criticisms. I do think this game was so important for when it came out because it was a lot of the world's first introduction to Dragon Quest. Officially, it was the first one to come out in Europe, and it really created the boom. Like it was such a success worldwide that Square Enix was encouraged to localize more Dragon Quest games, and I think it's hugely important for that reason. But also, it's even hard to pick a definitive version because the 3DS version worldwide removed the orchestral version from the orchestral soundtrack from the PS2 version, and and looks a lot jankier than the cell shading in the PS2 version, but also has the enemies visible on screen and just better communication in its skill system, and the two extra characters and the extra challenges that are really good. And I think that from a character and narrative perspective, Dragon Quest VIII is sort of good, not great, relative to other games in the series. I feel much closer to the casts of 11 and maybe even 4 compared to 8, plus one that I think we're going to talk about a lot later. Um, and oh, and just things like being uncertain what the best version is, for feeling that like if you're looking at extreme levels of polish in a Dragon Quest game, I think 11's better. And I mean I still even prefer Pissarro to Dual Magus as Dragon Quest antagonists. Like I think 8 was so hugely important and high impact when it came out in 2003 2004, depending on the region. um, but it has not sort of remained at top of my list with more perspective. So I think it belongs in A tier, and I'm totally happy with the outcome of Zach bumping it from B to A tier.
As am I. And yeah, I agree with a lot of those points, Sollosi. And even like as somebody like looking to replay this game, I don't know which version to play. Like I because getting the orchestral soundtrack and the better graphics in the PS2 version sounds really nice, but also the extra content, which I've never seen before in the 3DS version, also sounds nice. But those downgrades seem pretty crappy. So
The
yeah, I'm
3DS
kind
version
of
also has a semi fast forward, so just go with
Yeah.
that version.
I mean, I
yeah.
think that it's the better version, but especially if you've already played the PS2 version, you know what I mean? Not that I think you're probably itching to replay that 60-hour game, but um, yeah, since you've already played the PS2 version, I would say that 3DS is the way to go.
Okay, sounds good. But oh yeah, I will make one amendment to my Jack of all trades, master of none comment because the UI they put in the international
Oh,
release
yeah,
is kind of beautiful. I
it is
love it.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny to look at the Japanese version of it, and I'm like, oh, it's like still it's much more classic, but like, I'm not that precious about Dragon Quest, and I'm like, the UI here's it rips.
yeah, not enough to put in test here though.
I disagree, but you are victorious this time, Alex, and I'm not mad about it in A tier. So yeah, but anyway, let's see if you're gonna make him mad with your next pick.
I might. I actually don't know where either of you stand on this game. It's my most recent Dragon Quest game, but I insist this is not recency bias. Although I will affirm that it's probably personal bias based on just like what I prioritize and look for in video games. And so I'm going to put Dragon Quest VII, the original version that I played, in S tier.
Oh man,
Um, 7 for the PS1.
Yep.
Huh.
So, all right, this is like maybe my personal favorite Dragon Quest game at this point after playing it. The Dragon Quest games after like 3 and onwards like started focusing on this like episodic kind of locale specific storytelling that kind of complements the progression of the main quest. I think Dragon Quest VII does this better than any other entry in the series. Just the focus and the development of NPCs as kind of the main characters, the main players in each of these sort of vignettes you get is absolutely incredible. If you're just like constantly like checking up on NPCs again and again as like storylines progress, the it really feels like you are living in like experiencing like a living world. This is just how much sheer writing they put into this game. On top of that, it was also the first one to introduce party chat. And so like just the reactivity to even the most like kind of minor NPC dialogues was just blowing my mind throughout this entire playthrough. I even read like that apparently like the original Japanese script was like over 70,000 pages of text, which is absolutely bonkers.
You see, that sounds like
Um,
a good idea until you remember that about 20% of that party chat is going to be Maribel.
Maribel, okay, come on. All right. I like Maribel. I think she's great. I think she's a great character. I think like even the her kind of prissy attitude is like has some like nuance behind it in a lot of the different comments she makes. I think she's a good character. And
I mean, maybe I don't know. I don't mean to show my opinion this early, but I like Kiefer, Ira, Melvin, and Gabo slash Ruff a lot, and I do not care for Maribel. But that's my overall feelings on the Seven cast.
fair enough, fair enough. But and yeah, the rest of the cast is great. I think this is just also the closest a video game has come to feeling like kind of like an ancient epic, like it's that focus on episodic scenarios, kind of the morality it paints around all of them. It just has like also just it explores like darker subject matter with that usual sense of like hope and empathy that Dragon Quest games have. I know like people think that there's pacing issues to this game. I don't know, man. I just plowed through it and loved like every bit of it. I'm big on this game. And also just like the vacation system, the customizability. I know it's basically Dragon Quest Sixes, but just a little bit expanded. I think that's great.
so I have some bad news for you, Alex. Is that I strongly considered putting Dragon Quest VII in S tier.
Hey,
Um, And Sollosi and I had an episode many years ago now. Oh my goodness, where we talked about basically like ranking the Dragon Quest games. So it's a little different from this one, but and in that episode, I said that I it would be a top 4 Dragon Quest for me, and I stand by that. Now, granted, in my case, it it is the 3DS version, and I see all. And in fact, you said so much of what I think about Dragon Quest 7 that it was like almost like me speaking. In terms of the episodic storytelling, I think it's brilliant. I love it. I think it is a great distillation of what Dragon Quest is about in a lot of ways. I think the vocation system is at its best here, and it's not a coincidence that it's really the last time a normal quote unquote Dragon Quest game has done anything quite like that. But I do think that I bounced a little bit off of the PS1 version. I think the 3DS version shaves enough of the fat off for me. Like it's not 4 hours until you get into a battle; it's two or whatever.
I
Um,
love the intro. I love
yeah,
it.
I'm glad you do. But some of that puzzle stuff, I'm like, okay, I got it. Thank you. Um, so I would put the 3DS version in this conversation for S tier, and I think that it is a slept on Dragon Quest. I'm going to steal something that Sollosi says all the time, that it is the most Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
um, but and I think that the 3DS version finds the right balance, and I have some concerns about the reimagined version,
Mhm.
about the flavor of it being gone, and I think I just need to accept that like this is going to be a different experience, and so when I play that, which I certainly will be doing when it comes out. So yeah, you actually did not in any way make me mad if you were trying to. So good job, Alex.
I'm not upset. I'm a little surprised. I think that 7 to me, if I'm trying to, if I'm going with just how much I like these games, then maybe it's an A tier game for me. But if I'm trying to put perspective and like try to put some things in C or D tier, then maybe 7 gets bumped down to a B for me because I really do think it has pacing issues. I played through probably, oh, I don't know, uh like 60 or 70% of the PS1 version, which is to say 60 or 70 hours before I just completely ran out of steam, and I was very busy with university at the time. I was probably, it was in the mid 2000s. I was probably something like 20. But then finally got a chance to play it through at a more reasonable tick on the 3DS version, because I think the 3DS version even lowers some of the job battle requirements, because like job
Hmm.
levels increase with
They
number
do.
of battles fought in that job. Uh, it's I'd have to research to get the mechanics exactly right, but like the changes made to 7, just flattening out the experience curve a little bit and making certain things like like fast travel and inventory management a little bit cleaner so you can manage your puzzle pieces better. Really, and also seeing enemies visible in the field so you could avoid them if necessary, because the random encounter rate grind can be kind of rough in 7, but it can be kind of rough in basically every Dragon Quest game made
Yeah.
before the 3DS era. Uh, I think that this game does suffer from pacing issues. It really, really, it feels like every, even though it's divided into vignettes, like many Dragon Quest games are, almost all of them feel like they take a little too long. Uh, especially thinking of the PS1 version. And I love the statements it makes about like, um, it's not exactly a religion bad story, but the way its villains sort of seize power and manage power is way more interesting than some of the somewhat faceless villains of earlier Dragon Quest games. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
I love Dragon Quest uh 3 and 5, but Zoma and what's his name, not Death Timur, who's the final boss of Dragon Quest 5?
I embarrassingly do not remember.
Yeah, you see, like they're
Yeah, the name
basically just
escapes me.
generic bad guys introduced in kind of like the final act. But in Dragon Quest 7, it's this sort of layered demon lord that lost power and regained it, and then he seizes it by again by impersonating someone else, and then there's just more layers to a lot of the side characters in Dragon Quest 7 compared to earlier ones. And as you sort of like get more puzzle pieces and restore the world to a more complete state, visiting old areas really does like show you the character connections between each other. It's a huge amount of writing. and it is a huge, interesting undertaking. But I think that its pace drags it down, and when I think about the Dragon Quest games I want to replay the most, 7 is not very high on the list. In part because of the time commitment, but also in part because I just like other ones in the series better. Which is why I'm not even sure I'm gonna play the 7 remake when it comes out, because it wasn't that long ago that I played the 7 remake on 3DS. But I like this game. Again, for me, it is an A or a B. I'm a little surprised to see an enthusiastic 2 votes to 1 putting it in S. But I'm not. I mean, I don't have a veto to affect this placement. But even if I did, I probably wouldn't do anything with it.
Yeah, I think those are perfectly fair points because like even though for me like the pace of this game is just luxurious and epic and like very just allows that humanity that this game has at its core to really breathe. If somebody told me it was too much and it was too long and it dragged, like I would get it. Like I wouldn't like deny that. This is like I acknowledge a pretty personal taste kind of thing for me, but man, this is like it's soon after getting through it that this might be one of my favorite RPGs ever. Like I had an amazing time with it.
Yeah, I mean, you're even higher on it than I am, but I'm excited to see it there. So well done, Alex.
And
I
again, I said this on podcasts multiple times, where it's probably because if like longtime listeners probably roll their eyes hearing me say it again. 7 is good Dragon Quest, but it's also the most Dragon Quest, and that can be a positive or a negative,
Yeah.
depending on your perspective.
Okay. Well, that was I feel like I've had a lot more surprises than I thought I would. I mean, besides the first pick where I was like, yeah, yeah. Like I've been surprised even myself. I was like, am I really going to do that with Dragon Quest 4? Yeah, I am. I've been surprised by almost everything so far, which is exciting because I didn't think it would be as surprising. Um so all right, it's my pick. And this is a tricky one for me. But I am going to put the original Dragon Quest, which I don't think this will be super controversial, but it's just where I think it belongs, in C tier.
Yep.
Yep, agreed.
And that is actually not including the remake, which, to be honest with you, I would probably put in D tier. I thought that the remake, I was talking to my wife about how I would score because I gave, the Dragon Quest 1 and 2 remake, thing like an 80. And I think I probably would have given Dragon Quest 1 a 65. And I don't want to go too far into, but I actually think talking about it helps sort of clarify why I think that even though Dragon Quest 1 still has problems, of course, what still sort of distinguishes it. So, like, I think Dragon Quest 1, the original, even in like its, remasters up through the mobile version, was like a really lonely game. It had this sense of like mystery and danger, and like you don't really know where you're going or what's going to happen to you. Even like having to get those torches, as annoying as it was to go through the dungeons, it was like just like it felt like it you were kind of walking through like this really like lonely, dangerous world. And the music on the overworld, I was always like very haunting to me as a kid. And I think that like sort of that solo element of it and that sort of 1v1 element to it, like really does some things to elevate it. And of course, from a history perspective, it's very critically important to the genre. And I don't discount that at all. But even as like a game that I think the last time I replayed it was like 2018, that original version was really it's such a distinct experience to me. And so despite all the other problems it has a paper thin story, it has totally uninteresting combat mechanics, it has all kinds of things that are very frustrating, it is too opaque, but I think it's opaque enough for the size of the world you can still find your way around as long as you're paying attention. Whereas I think that the remastered version of it, which I don't want to go too far into, the remastered version of it adds a lot of stuff that it makes it just feel like connective tissue between 2 and 3. Um, but it loses a lot of that magic and a lot of that mystery and a lot of that danger and replaces it with some, in my opinion, crappy RNG mechanics and fights that are unfair. And yeah, I don't know. So Dragon Quest 1 to me is still like a special experience and an important experience, but I think it's a C tier experience in Dragon Quest.
I have a couple thoughts on this. First of all, maybe we should do an episode on opacity versus transparency in games, because when I play older games, I always wish that there was more transparency. Like that I could examine the game's mechanics more, or they gave me more hints in certain situations. But then when I play games of the 2020s, sometimes I wish there was a little bit more left to mystery and and imagination and discoverability. So I'm not sure whether I want games to be more or less opaque or transparent. But I think that that's probably a think piece in the making, at least. But also, I think that one belongs in C tier for some reasons you said, and some I'll say a little bit let's say less thoughtful reasons. Like if I'm just gonna reduce these to tiers and numbers for a second, forgive me. I know that's bad practice, but like I feel like Dragon Quest One in a vacuum, examining the mechanics, story, and trying to evaluate them very independently, maybe it is a D tier game because the events of the plot are very rote. The dialogue barely exists. The characterization barely exists. Of course, it's the first JRPG though, and does a lot of things that influenced many games to get to come. And there weren't any games hardly like it when it came out. So I feel like that elevates it from a D to a C at least. And then when you look at the modern remake, it still has the I feel like in a vacuum, it's more of a C tier game because it has more rich mechanics. Like you actually have skills beyond hurt and heal, and you have a few more extra things to do in the world than what the original Dragon Quest One gives you. And I feel like examined in a vacuum, maybe the remake is a C tier game, but because it's a remake of a game that's almost 40 years old by now, like that makes it almost sort of less impressive, if anything. Like I think that the new remake is charming and a fun distraction for 15 hours, but ultimately kind of empty calories, while Dragon Quest 2 is the much more compelling part of that package. Uh so like I think that like original Dragon Quest is a C tier thanks to its impact, and the remake of Dragon Quest 1 is a C tier more just examining it on its merits. But either way, the result is C tier, and I have no problem with this ranking.
Yeah,
Apologies for
me.
the very confused ramble for most of that.
No, it made sense to me. I mean, like, for me, like the first time I played this game was a couple years ago on the ugly ass Switch port, with those terrible kind of like mobile looking graphics. And as someone who played that version and values storytelling, characterization, challenging combat, strategic combat in RPGs, I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed this game. Anyways, that 1v1 combat is really, there's not much to it, but what this game does do well is have like a clear sense of progression based on leveling. There aren't a ton of levels you can level up, but each one you do feels so meaningful with either the new move you get or just like the power spike you get, the fact that it opens up more of the map or a new dungeon to you. Like that sense of progression that's kind of just at the core of this genre, is very tangible and rewarding in this game, even when its other factors are just completely undeveloped. And I also agree with you, Zach, that the small scope of this game really makes that opacity that like an old game like this will have in terms of like its direction, just better, because like it's open ended. You have access to pretty much the entire map from the beginning, even if you can't realistically travel through them because of the monster levels. But you can just like start to figure out like, how do I get these MacGuffins, talking to NPCs to get hints, noting them down. That just like, it's just fun. It's pretty unique at the same time. So I think D tier would be too mean, and C tier makes a lot of sense.
There's still something really particular about it. Even in the oeuvre of Dragon Quest and the oeuvre of, I mean, even like comparing it to something like a contemporary of it, like Fantasy Star, which is, has its own things that sort of distinguish it, the original Fantasy Star. I think that it it's just so special in its own way still. Okay, so now that Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior is in its correct spot, and we all agree on it, which is awesome. Slowsy, you have two picks in a row.
Right, and I'm gonna be almost the opposite from how I acted in round one, where I put my favorite Dragon Quest game at the highest possible tier. I'm going to put one Dragon Quest game that I don't love as much in the lowest possible tier. So this is going to be my first attempt at putting something in D tier, and that is going to be Dragon Quest 6.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, rough.
D.
Disagree.
D for disagree.
Alex, it doesn't have to stay in D if you don't want it to be.
It won't.
I really like Dragon Quest Six.
I think Dragon Quest 6 just does not do anything as well as the games surrounding it. If you like examine, I don't know, say 4 through 8, I think that 6 has the least interesting set of characters, a job system that is not as good as 7's. It has a grind that is somewhat slow. The concept of a real world and dream world that you navigate between is interesting until you try to, you know, think about it too hard, which is again not a I'm not telling people to I'm not saying that I had a difficulty suspending disbelief, but it just felt like a flimsy concept to me. And and again, like I when I play an RPG, especially a long one, how much I enjoy the company of the characters matters a lot. And so for a long game
Terry's
like
great.
what
Oh, Terry, I love Terry.
yeah, what are your thoughts on Nevan?
I mean, I don't have any.
I mean Terry is cool. He in fact he's probably coolest in the coolest he's ever been in the Dragon Quest Heroes Musou game. He's like the best character in the game there. But I just care so little for like Barbara and Millie and Nevan. And I think that it is one of the weakest Dragon Quest casts, one of the weaker Dragon Quest storylines. Um again more to more slash death to more is a little bit faceless and backloaded into the storyline, not unlike Zoma. um but like when I again, this is a similar criterion from when we were talking about 7 a little while ago. Like when I think about the Dragon Quest games I want to replay the most versus the least, like 6 might be at the very end of the list, because I played it once on a Super Famicom emulator and once on the DS, and both times I'm like, this is all right, but it's a little too long, and I'm much more interested in the rest of the series. So I think it. I maybe I would have put it in C tier, but Zach just put something in C tier, and I don't want to break the rules, so I had to put it in D tier.
I mean,
You
you could
made
have
me
just
do
done
it, Alex.
something else and then gone to your next pick and then put it in C
No,
tier.
no. I was. This is a vibes based podcast. The vibe was putting 6 in D tier.
Alex, you gonna let that stand?
Fair enough, I guess, but it's not standing. And it's not that I love this game. Although like my opinion on it was quite high when I played it. I think playing 7 just like knocked it down a notch for me because of a lot of what this game is trying to do. 7 just does straight up better in a lot of
Yeah,
ways.
all you could even say all the ones from 4 through 8 do things better than this one.
Yeah, like they both have like kind of like slow burn opening starts, but like in Dragon Quest 6, like you don't get like the party member recruitment is so sparse that like the first 10 hours of this game do really drag actually. I do think it picks up quite a bit in like the second half or even like the second third. But yeah, the beginning is a little rough. The real world and dream world kind of moving between them and seeing how things change is a cool concept that I think in parts is actually executed quite well. I wouldn't like call it a total failure in terms of like its execution, but then moving through history in Dragon Quest 7 is just also way better and more interesting and better executed. What I will say is that like okay, there's two things that I think 6 really still have that would make me still hold it in pretty high regard. I played the Super Famicom version, and I think it's got the best graphics of any non 3D Dragon Quest. Like I think the Super Famicom version of this looks beautiful. Like it is almost up there with like Final Fantasy 6 and like other kind of really nice pixel art games. For just making the most of that hardware. I think the soundtrack is also quite good. I think it's one of the last good ones. in terms of Sugiyama's output. And I also think in the second, third, especially I know some people knock it, but like the sense of exploration, the way the map opens up and you're kind of like given more ways to explore. You even have the whole underwater thing. I think some people really don't gel with that. I thought it was really cool. I think it actually like finally fulfilled the promise of like what Dragon Quest 2 was trying to do. But like actually have like a much more rewarding and manageable kind of sense of exploration to it, where like you were discovering things and there was a genuine sense of surprise and intrigue there, in terms of the progression. Yeah, I'm bumping this up to C tier. It's probably a B tier for me personally, but it's certainly not a D tier.
And again, I also think this is a C tier game, but I was trying to bait everybody.
Yeah,
Trying to bait it out. I
and
understand.
you did it. Yeah.
Well done. Yeah, I think that it's fair to call it sort of a proto Dragon Quest Seven. I think that the like sort of like town to town storytelling here is pretty good. But again, I think Dragon Quest Seven does it better. I think that the job system is I like it. I think that some jobs, at least in the DS version, which is the one that I played, are just broken compared to others. So I think that it's fair to say that. But along with everything Alex said, I also think it has like the coolest super boss in of any of the Dragon Quest
Mhm.
games. Like that Necron thing, like he's just kind of sitting there, and he's a really challenging super boss. And for me, like in my mind, a lot of times, like that's the thing. One of the things that sticks with me just because it's like the last thing that I did in a Dragon Quest game. And so I really like that part of it. And I just think it's kind of, I think the conceit, while I could see it being thin, I think it's fun. But like Alex, this would be a B tier game for me. But I'm not horrified to see it in C tier, but I would be horrified to see it in D.
This is a little sad, but I think my favorite characterization in Dragon Quest 6 is when Lizzie the dragon joins you later in the game, and in party chats it's
Yeah.
revealed that is a woman and may have a romantic crush on Terry.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's so
That
fun.
that's great. That is an S tier subplot.
It
That does
is.
not
It's
save the
super
game.
fun.
I can imagine as someone who didn't play the DS version, I can imagine or would hope at least that the party chat helps with like some of the negative characterization a little bit.
It makes me like Barbara a little bit more, but like when especially when I was playing the Super Famicom version, I remember uh like Hassan slash Carver gets some story moments early on, but I was struggling to care about anything that Millie, Barbara, or Navon said. It's like why are you guys even here? You seem as uninterested as the NPCs I'm talking to in joining the team. But and I think probably it is helped a little bit with party chat. But I don't know. This is the Dragon Quest cast I care about the least or close to the least, and that's what drags it down for me.
I could see that. I think
Yeah,
that's a
fair
fair
point.
assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
anyway, I have another pick now.
you do, but we are officially listeners at the halfway point now. So I want to do a quick rundown of where we are in the tiers right now. Right now we have two in S tier, Dragon Quest 11 and Dragon Quest 7. We have one in A tier, Dragon Quest 8, one in B, Dragon Quest 4, and then two in C, which are Dragon Quest and then Dragon Quest 6. So we haven't done any of the side games yet, but we've still got 6 to go. So we still need to place 2, 3, 5, 9 monsters and Rocket Slime. So what's your next pick going to be, Sollosi?
Well, I also have the final pick in the draft, and I'm sure that that's going to be whatever you guys are less interested in between Rocket Slime and Monsters. So I am gonna pick a numbered one again, and this is one of the Dragon Quest games that I feel I see the widest range of opinions on. Like for at least one person I personally know, this is their favorite Dragon Quest. But I've
It's gonna
seen
be
other
9,
people.
isn't it?
It is 9, and it's going in B tier.
All right.
I think that Dragon Quest 9, if you're playing it in the moment with some multiplayer integration, it is an improved experience. But that's a game that needs some either short range street passing stuff or some online to help it a little bit. And the fact that the DS servers are down and a lot of that is just not available anymore. And also the game does suffer from pacing issues similar to 6 or 7. It's just the leveling curve is very slow. The job system, while pretty robust and interesting for the most part, takes a long time to get any interesting skills once you get to a certain baseline. Um a lot of job quests and equipment driven quests are really just like MMO chaff that is sometimes very specific and annoying to deal with. And so I remember when I was doing like the mid game to end game skill and equipment grind, it just really was quite miserable. And I almost longed for the days of just having to get into 100 fights or something like in Dragon Quest 6 or 7. But for character customization stuff, it's quite good, especially for the DS. Like if you do have an opportunity to play it on multiplayer or with the server quests intact, it is a better experience. I think that the story vignettes, um because a lot of Dragon Quest games are sort of very segmented compared to other RPGs of their same eras. Some of them are pretty interesting. Like, you know, a lot of it is some innocuous thing, whether it's the ghost of a teacher or someone's pet lizard or someone's beloved doll is sort of monkey's paw twisted wished into something that they shouldn't be, and you have to sort of resolve that because of the what is it, the wishing apples in this game. They were apples, right? Or fruit.
I really don't know, which I will discuss
You
in
know,
a
they were
moment.
figs, FYGG, right? They were magical figs, but they felt like apples of the Hesperides to when I was playing it. And also Corvus is a pretty cool main villain. Um, he has a lot more to him than the sort of the less interesting Dragon Quest villains of the past.
That's
But
true.
like,
He
so
is one of
there's
the
some
better
things that
ones.
Dragon Quest 9 does very well, which is why it's not resigned to C or D tier, but in my personal ranking. But it really suffers from not having modern conveniences and having cut a lot of its original content just unavailable now. It's more than any other Dragon Quest game. If someone was to ask me for recommendations, or if I was to assess myself which ones I want to replay the most, like, 9 is in a class of its own. Please wait for a remake, because I think that its current state is not a game I want to play. But if they were to give it a somewhat full throated remake on a modern console with good online infrastructure and most of the same stuff, maybe some extras here and there, uh, not necessarily new classes or anything, just if the things that made Dragon Quest 9 good were preserved better in a remake, then it would be a much easier recommendation. But the way in the state it is now, it's like I don't think this is a game people should seek out. This game is needs a remake more than any
Yeah.
other game we're on the list. And there's parts of it I really like, parts of it I find frustrating, and the frustrating parts are made worse by the lack of the DS's online infrastructure anymore. So to me, it's in the B tier, and I thought about putting it lower, but I think B is fair for how I feel about it.
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion, and the reasons are what you just described. Um, because I didn't try to get around to this game until like 2017, 2018, and I discovered very quickly that it was pretty bare without the online functionality. And I got maybe a couple hours in, and I was like, this is a game that I want to engage with, but it feels like it's not there to engage with anymore. And it's interesting because, I talk about my grandparents a lot when I talk about Dragon Quest, and I think that because they played together and they played online, I think they had like 1,000 hours in this game or something insane like that. Like, so I know that this is a game that is very beloved by a lot of people. And if you ask me, like, what's the Dragon Quest game you want to see remade the most, even more than like a localized 10, to be honest with you, even more than that, I would love to see a 9, just because I just feel bad that I haven't engaged with something that was important to people who are important to me. So, yeah, I can't disagree.
Yeah, that point of this being the one that needs the remake the most, for sure. Like, especially, like, we have Switches now, like, this is the most, like, Dragon Quest IX coded platform I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Just being able to get a couple of people together in handheld mode and ripping through this game, like, that sounds like a delightful experience. Even though I have a lot of problems with what this game is, like, compared to the rest of the series, like, I think that would be amazing. Um, yeah, like the whole MMO inspired design, just for me, I guess what put me off the most and like made me not even finish this game when I was playing it during like my peak DS Dragon Quest experience, is just like that design like just dilutes a lot of the personality that I love about this series. Like even though the vignettes are still solid, that the villain is genuinely good, like you said, just kind of moment to moment, like just feels a lot more inconsequential and like lighthearted to an extent of feeling almost vapid compared to like a lot of the other vignettes you find in the series. With exceptions, mind you, but just having that pace throughout like an entire like MMO scoped experience, like it results in some serious issues like trying to make it through as a single player game. But yeah, like it has promise, that I would absolutely be down to revisit it. Like it's kind of like taking that core premise from Dragon Quest 3 of like building your own party from the get-go and like really, creating your own characters, developing your own characters rather than like a set cast. Like is cool and has potential. But yeah, I would not revisit this game in its current state either. To me, it's like maybe a C tier because of that, but B tier is fine enough.
Yeah, I think that, especially given just the uniqueness that it has, I think that even though that uniqueness is mostly gone, I think that I think that probably elevates it to be personally, just again from an outside perspective. Okay, so that now it means it comes to me, and I've been avoiding two games for two very different reasons, and I have to make a decision about which one I want to do. And I think I'm going to punt the game I don't know what to do with right now, and I'm going to protect something that I don't think is in danger, but I don't want it to not be where it belongs. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I know Alex's opinion about this game. I definitely know Sollosi's opinion about this game. But Dragon Quest V, we all know where it belongs, right?
Is
That's
there a
S
tier
tier.
above S?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's S tier. I didn't think that anybody was going to give me any flack on that one. But I don't want it to be. It just I couldn't bear looking at the bottom of this tier list maker and like knowing that it's not where it belongs. Dragon Quest V is, and I'm on record as saying this, it is my favorite Dragon Quest game. And it's interesting because there are lots of things about Dragon Quest V that are not totally remarkable, right? I think that the combat itself, even though there are things around it that make it more interesting, I don't think is any like great shakes. Um, but pretty much everything else about Dragon Quest V, I think, is excellent. The story, obviously, I think that most people would agree that Dragon Quest V story is so unique and so special, and I think that it clears the rest of the series by pretty wide margin. It clears most RPGs because it's so simple and so beautiful and so interesting in the way that it's constructed, even from like its base conceit that you are not the hero. But the generational element of it, Pankraz is such a great character. You follow this person from childhood to adulthood, and it makes it all the more moving as a result. It gives you enough choice both in like who you marry, which Deborah is the correct choice in the DS. Anybody who says differently is wrong.
Only one of them
And
learns Kaboomal, and it's not Deborah.
oh, but only one really hits hard. The monster collecting, I think, is really cool here. I mean, this predates even Pokemon, and it is really. I think it's integrated just enough. I've sort of discovered that I like monster collecting is sort of like a piece of my RPG, not the point of my RPG, and it allows for a lot of flexibility in the way you build your party. It allows for a lot of customization that is unique to the series, and I just think it like some of it's just totally dialogue free storytelling. In terms of like the thing with the statues, I think about that like once a week. I think about that sequence. I just think Dragon Quest V is a beautiful game, and it's S tier no matter what RPG list we're talking about.
Yeah, there's just something about this game, its personality, its storytelling that just makes it so easy to forgive any other complaints you have about it. Because like I just talked about how it was kind of frustrating in 6 how like slow you get characters, how slowly you recruit characters because of five's nature of its storytelling, the way it like jumps between, generations. You're sometimes working with like less of a party than you'd want. I mean, the monster recruiting definitely helps with that, but like it's just like it's who cares? Like if when it's just like you and like Henry, for example, it's like okay, fine, like this is great, this is so cool. We just bust out of slavery, like this. Yeah, hell yeah. Um, the game manages like to do so many things with that. All of its like kind of sweeter, kind of dramatic moments like really shine through and like live in your head for some reason. Like it just got that quality to it. I am a little confused, Zach, why you forgive all these qualities in 5 and put 4 in C tier at the beginning, but
Bro, are you trying to tell me that the 4 story is on five's level? Because now we're gonna have a fight.
not on the same level. I mean, like 4 is an A tier for me, but like it's just doing interesting things as well. But I digress. 5 is an S tier. This is good.
When I think of sort of the Dragon Quest game with the soundest mechanics and most beautiful visual choices, and maybe even best diverse, sort of like best cast of characters. I don't think of 5, I think of 11. But 5 does just about everything at the absolute highest level in this series. The hero's journey and the core sort of front to back storyline is dramatic and attaching and satisfying and just wonderful. The like giving players one high impact choice in choosing who to marry affects both your party and some visual elements of like your children's hair color, and is just it invites a spirited discussion. It's like, oh, who's your like, who did you marry in this game? It go, like, that's the almost root of every who did you romance in this BioWare game discussion that people have been getting very passionate about for decades and decades. I think that Dragon Quest V has the most um affecting story of a Dragon Quest game. It's my favorite main character of a Dragon Quest game. Some of my favorite side characters. The monster recruitment sort of fills in the gaps in your party when, as both of you alluded to, at times the number of humans you get in your party is sort of light, but they sort of ease you into monster recruiting by having Saber slash Barongo join you when he does, and then the the whole game within a game of recruiting good monsters. Beyond that, uh, at every point of Dragon Quest V, what's going on is interesting, and the choices it's making and are interesting. There's not like a bad part of the game, because there's like at the beginning you have this great sort of main support character in Pankraz, and then you and Henry are busting out of slavery, and you're reconnecting with your childhood friend and possibly marrying them, and then you're early on in your marriage and exploring the world as a couple with your band of monsters, and then the absolute like silent film of the statue scene happens, and the stakes seem suddenly very higher and uncertain at the end of the game, and it's just every part of Dragon Quest V is super compelling, and it does some things that are unsurpassed in other Dragon Quest games, and it's an S tier for me. But I also felt like both of you liked this game about as much as I did, so I didn't need to put it in S tier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just it was getting late enough that I was getting worried. I was
Yeah,
like,
I was slightly more worried about 11 than I was about 5, and I also didn't want to start the podcast on a super negative note of me putting something like 6 into D tier or 7 into C tier, which was something I considered at first. Um but of course I'm happy with 5 in S tier. It like it is a dead heat with 11 for my favorite in the series, and it just depends on what day and what I want to talk about that day, which one's my favorite.
yeah. Now that Dragon Quest V is where it belongs, in S tier, Alex, you have your final 2 picks, and you have Dragon Quest II, Dragon Quest III, Dragon Quest Monsters, and Rocket Slime available to you.
All right, so I think for the first of these, I'll do another mainline one, and one that I'm honestly a little surprised that hasn't been placed at this point. And it's one that we podcasted about, the three of us plus Wes, about a year ago now, almost exactly a year. And that's Dragon Quest 3, which I'm just gonna slot right into A tier.
Good
Um,
pick. Good pick.
I think this is
yeah,
where it belongs. Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, and again, like y'all might recall that I played the original NES version at the time that we did that podcast, and I imagine that's probably the worst version. And even despite that, A tier. This game is just that well designed. I think from the jump. Um, it's got like just it does like everything, pretty much everything, but like main character characterization that you'd want from this series just well. It's paced excellently, I think. It's, vignette storytelling isn't really, it's like the first time it's really got a handle of that, and it's not like kind of amazing, but it has some really cool sections despite that. I'm looking especially at like Roma and like becoming king for a little bit at point, I think is like a really cool little touch for such an old game. Its sense of challenge, and I think the NES version was probably the most challenged, but I think even that I was blown away by how well balanced it felt. I had to do some grinding, but nothing that felt like egregious, even compared to like later games in the series. Um, just the fact that you have an entire party from the get go is such a nice move, just gameplay wise. You immediately are like trying to like encourage to plan out what you're gonna do for this run of the game. How you're gonna like, are you gonna like dual class characters? What are you gonna do there? You can already start planning all of that from the beginning. That obviously gives it a huge bit of replayability as well. And then that entire kind of second third of the game where the map opens up a bit and you do the orb seeking, I think was some of the most rewarding and well scoped out exploration I experienced in this entire series. So yeah, this game just like does it all well. Isn't as good as the best games in the series, but certainly A tier I think is an appropriate spot for it.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement. I think that Dragon Quest 3, and I think in whether it's the NES version or the HD 2D remake version of it, is a solidly A tier game. It feels like it is the first complete Dragon Quest game, and it still feels good. I mean, there's a reason that the HD 2D remake version of it like is really quite faithful. They add a couple things here and there, but like it's very faithful to what the original game was because it's sequenced out so well. I think you got that first third, that second third, and that final third that all feel really distinct, but like they flow into each other really well. The storytelling, especially I think in the HD 2D remake version of it, I think is just strong enough to kind of carry it through. It just feels like a really like complete experience that like, I think about like when it was made. I'm like, holy crap! I can't believe this game is that good. And I just think that the class system is still interesting. You still have to make choices, and even though those choices are sort of like the half level thing or like the resetting your level thing is like a very particular thing, but it's still even all these years later still works, and it's still I still think that it's a fascinating setup, and I think that it's just so iconic, to like you think about like those opening moments, you think about falling down the volcano. It's just it's so good.
I think that its core design principles were held up very well. When I played the remake last year, I love how the world feels like it keeps expanding. Like at first, you only know your starting island, then you only know this sort of, I don't know, like vaguely Mediterranean range around around the starting area in the new continent, and then once you have your ship, the more and more the world just keeps expanding and recontextualizing places you've already visited in a way that it was a very great feeling playing it last year and must have been just a complete mind blow in 19 what was this 88 or 89.
88, yeah.
Yeah, in on the NES. So it feels like the first fully formed Dragon Quest game, because where one was a foundation and two expanded on one, but three is like, oh, this is the feeling I want from a Dragon Quest game, with these very sort of alternately cute and serious designs, but with a real feeling of progress and a hero's journey and efficacy, with interesting sort of vignette based storytelling and a cool central villain. Like three is so much better than one and two. It that it's really quite startling, and every game after three feels like, at least at different points, it's calling back to three. And it's so for its impact, it's probably an S tier, but on its own merits, it is definitely a worthy A tier. I think this is the appropriate placement for it.
Yeah, and I think it's, we talked about this when we recorded that episode a year ago, but I think it's remarkable you playing it on the NES and just like the progression still feeling as good as it does. And like, because when I think about like the progression in a Dragon Quest game on the NES, and probably just because most of my time with the NES Dragon Quest games was one and two, I'm like, oh, the progression was just horrible. It was just like so much grinding and so much, and like to hear that that's not, we probably had some grinding, I'm sure, which is that's eliminated in the most recent version, except for I guess job class grinding if you want to mess around with that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's really cool.
I am not exaggerating to say like the balance of this game, the NES version, like blew my mind when I was playing it, because I've tried to go back to play like some NES games, and none of them felt like this, like zero. Yeah, it's really impressive. And oh yeah, that also, like, without getting too much into spoilers, just like what Act 3 does like for its time, like, man, that is just such a neat idea. So cool. And like if you've played like the original games, like it has like some real like emotional resonance to it.
I
Um
I freaked out when I was played it as a kid.
yeah.
All right, well, Dragon Quest 3 is where it belongs, A tier. And you've got three choices remaining, my friend. So what's it going to be? Where's it going to go?
All right, so I mean, nostalgically, this game would maybe be an A tier for me, but I'm not gonna push it that high. Because I really liked this game when I first played it on the DS. I even went back to mess around a little bit in it before this podcast. Dragon Quest Rocket Slime rules, but it's not a perfect game. It's a solid B tier game, I think. So this is way different than any other game in the series, or at least the ones that we're putting on this tier list, even compared to our other spin-off, because it's not a JRPG. It's an action adventure. But it's one with a lot of character. It's like the Dragon Quest team was trying to task themselves with making it sort of Zelda-like. And this game, like, kind of looks like Zelda in terms of like its presentation, but it plays significantly differently, in a way that is just, I think, very unique to this day. It's kind of got like this very heavy focus on like adventure elements where like you're trying to you have like these different zones you're going through. You have these slimes you need to recruit. There's like just like, puzzle kind of progression, exploration across like the different zones, trying to figure out how to free all the slimes. It's very much kind of like a kids game, I think. Thus why how much I loved it as a kid. Like the amount of slime puns in this
Oh,
is
truly
obscene.
delightful.
Yeah,
Truly delightful.
obscene in a good way. I've never enjoyed the Dragon Quest kind of new localization style in terms of its slime punning more than here, because it just like it's done with so much love and silliness. It's infectious.
They
So
really
yeah.
do lean into like slime cuteness and their dumb grins and the dumb slime puns in a way that, it depends on the audience, but you'll either find it delightful or like oh man, like when are they gonna fight a demon lord?
Yeah, and so yeah, again, it's like simple and it's pretty easy, but it's got just enough friction, just enough kind of like optional stuff to do, and like customization to be a rewarding experience. And it even has those weird tank battle segments, which is just like what an idea to throw on top of like the core gameplay of this, which is actually like pretty cool. And I enjoyed it, at least. Yeah. like almost like
Yeah,
light RTS for kids.
yeah. I mean, I just bought this game recently because I'd never played it before, and I got maybe a few hours into it, and I think that my opinion might be slightly lower as someone who's coming at it as a 40-year-old, just because I was like, oh, okay, this is like it was so easy to progress that like eventually like the slime puns only took it so far. You know what I mean? And I really liked the slime puns for the record. I think they were really like delightful and like it was charming and it was just like having fun with it. And I really enjoyed that, but I was like, okay, like I don't need to fight a demon necessarily, but like I just need something that makes my brain have to turn on at all. And that wasn't really happening, but I can totally see it being, especially kind of with having played it as a kid, and being an entry point almost into the series, maybe for some people, like it being one that people would really enjoy.
I remember when I was seeking this game out, I was like in the throes of Dragon Quest fandom because I'd heard about this game. I was in the middle of playing the Dragon Quest DS games, and I was just excited for more Dragon Quest. So I did go into this one pretty hot, and it is simple. It's like what if Zelda was much easier and sillier to a degree. The tank battle mechanics are a fun sort of separate gameplay theater, but ultimately this is a game that's sort of top down 3D 2D puzzle action with some collecting elements. And that might not be appealing to all Dragon Quest fans that want a you know a sort of hardcore turn-based JRPG, but it's fun. I might, I don't know. I haven't played it in so long. I played this game once in the late 2000s and have not touched it since. But I do remember enjoying my time with it. But to me, this would be a B or a C. So even if I had a veto, I wouldn't touch what this choice of B from Alex. But it's a good game, but I think it helps to go in with the proper expectations if you're trying to enjoy this game in 2025. But I am a little bit annoyed that this is the second game of a trilogy, so we never got the tankless GBA first one or the pirate ship 3DS sequel. That's too bad.
Yeah, with the amount of like kind of remaster port things they're doing recently, I wonder if we'll see those two games in like a collection or something anytime soon. That'd be nice, just for completionist sake.
Yeah, I mean, the localization choices that they make sometimes baffle me. I would think like Dragon Quest X seems like a much easier win, but I don't know. Well, that is the end of your picks, Alex. And I have my final pick. And it's been a game I've been avoiding. And I've been thinking about where I'm going to put it. And it's a challenge because in its original form, I would put it in D tier. In its new HD remaster form, I would put it in A tier. So I think I'm going to kind of split the difference and also respect the ambition of Dragon Quest II. And I'm going to put Dragon Quest II in B tier.
I don't think you're allowed to do that.
Oh crap. No, let me go back on that then.
Yeah, sorry,
Shoot.
man.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. You're good.
Because I was,
try
as
that
you were
again.
saying that, I'm like, wait a second, where is he going with this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shoot.
But
That
I'm
really
also
is a
slightly
decision.
Yeah,
concerned because wherever you put this, I'm not allowed to put monsters there.
That's true.
yeah, I didn't even do this intentionally.
No, I
I
didn't
just I
think you
just
were trying
figured
to stake
either
me.
you were gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna rank the new one so A tier, or the old one so D tier.
That's totally fair. Man, oh, this is a tough choice. I can't, in good conscience, look at Dragon Quest II with all my history with it and all my knowledge of it and put it in A tier. I just can't do it. Like, I just can't look at that game in like an A tier. Like, it just seems like rage bait at that point.
I mean, you
So I
have
gotta
you
put it.
have a knowledge that we simply do not.
I know.
I've only played the
Um,
first few hours of the remake, and it's already better than the entirety of the original.
that is very true. But I still I think like Dragon Quest II in its original form is such a D tier, and I probably would put it. I'm gonna have to put it on C tier, and I'll argue for it to hopefully be at the top of C tier. So that's gonna be where I have to put it. I don't feel good about that, but I think it's important to kind of talk about both sides of it here in terms of why I'm placing it here, because Dragon Quest II, I mentioned earlier, probably the first game I beat kind of on my own ish, and how miraculous that is. But Dragon Quest II is, in its original form, a completely whack game. It's just like it doesn't even really understand what it wants to be. It's trying to be like a number of things that it can't really be for a variety of reasons, probably development time and things like that. It's way too directionless. You have three party members, two of them totally suck. I actually think that like the best strategy, and I think I've read this somewhere. I haven't played the original NES version in a long time. Is to literally just let them stay dead, because you get more experience for the Prince of Middenhall. But like when it opens up and they give you the boat, it's like you don't know where to go. It's directionless. I think it kind of wants to tell a compelling story, but it really doesn't at all. And it just doesn't really do anything except for have these crazy difficulty spikes. Road to Rhone is like a curse word, I think, to a lot of people who played the original NES version. Um, it just doesn't work at all. I think as a video game in pretty much any capacity. But I do respect its ambition. Um, Dragon Quest II HD2 remake absolutely hits those ambitions and exceeds them because it still is recognizably Dragon Quest II in pretty much all ways. But it adds so much flavor and depth. It really kind of turns the Princess of Moonbrook, in my opinion, into the main character. And I think that is a huge boon to the game. It spends so much time on characterization, on sort of the darkness of this world in a way that is really compelling. It balances the combat really well. I mean, the Prince of Middenhall, I still think by the end game, like buff that dude and just let him just go ham is still like the best way to play that game. But like its storytelling is really honestly kind of rich. Its characterization is great. The Prince of Canuck is now like this doofus who's fun. His little sister joins the party and she's really great. And it still gives you that sort of freedom in the boat section that you have, that is very lengthy, and it adds a ton of stuff into it, but it also like lets you kind of do it in its own order. You still, to find everything in that game, have to really dig around. I don't think it's perfect. I think the underwater section is kind of boring, but it's just a really good game. But at the end of the day, I have to, that game came out a month ago, and Dragon Quest 2 has been out for almost my whole life. And I have to kind of, if I'm gonna have to split the difference, I got to split it. If I guess I'm gonna split it towards C, even though I wanted to split it towards B. That's where I am on Dragon Quest 2.
I mean, you alluded to my feelings on it already. Like, I think that 2 on the NES is probably the worst main series Dragon Quest game, in large part because of the frustrating grind, especially the end game grind. I suffered through it. I beat it on the Game Boy Color. Eventually, I didn't get super far on the NES version on rentals many years ago, but it's like I was glad to have finished it, but thought I'd never would want to replay it ever again. But then the 3 remake happened and made me more interested in Dragon Quest 2 than I'd ever been in the last 20 years. And the very beginning that I've played of it now is really really promising. But because my core experience with it is that NES version, I think I probably would personally put it in the currently empty D tier. But and it's like whether you care about having like whether you again this is so challenging for this particular one because the remake and the original are so wildly different and both of them are valid first DQ 2 experiences that like which one do you count for an exercise like this is a real question, and we don't have specific guidelines for you must pick the original or you must pick the most recent version, which we talked about uh hours ago by now. So Yeah, I respect your choice, of course, Zach, because I respect you and this podcast. But I think that there's a valid case for putting this thing anywhere from D through S, depending on your experience with the remake versus the original. But I think if it was solely up to me, it would be D. But now I'm just trying to think of where to put the last game now that it's not allowed to be in C anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I barely made it that far into this game. I just like recruited all three characters, the original version, by the way, and maybe got a little bit further. Just like I simply cannot anymore. So yeah, I don't think anybody who has only played the NES version would deny that this is a D tier pick. Even just like when we were talking about Dragon Quest One, like it's got that smaller scope, it's got that really tangible sense of progression. This just like completely ruins that and doesn't have the refinement of three either. It's in such a weird middle spot where the team had to like try to figure out how to expand what they started with one. But we're also on a bit of a time crunch and just like they literally did not have time to balance the game. Like they didn't have time to test before release, and that's why like that entire section towards the end, which I didn't even get to, is just like unbearable. um yeah, it's like it's not a fun RPG, it's not a good RPG, but the fact that there is that new version and that you speak so highly of it, Zach, like I want this will probably be my next Dragon Quest game. I want to see a good version of this game. I think that would be really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, sorry to put you in that predicament of needing to figure out where this
No.
thing goes.
I mean, I probably the right person to make the choice, I guess. But yeah, it's a tricky one, and yeah, it's I don't know where else to put it. I can't deny that now, like there is a definitive version of this game that belongs in A tier. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
think that there is absolutely no reason that anyone, except for as a history lesson and a pain lesson, should ever play Dragon Quest 2 anymore. I do not think that about Dragon Quest 1 or Dragon Quest 3. But I think there is a version that has invalidated all previous versions of Dragon Quest 2, but
I used to joke
those
that
versions
that certain old historically interesting games like I don't know, East One or Dragon Quest Two are best experience as Wikipedia articles.
right. Exactly. And now it's best experienced as a video game that I think belongs in like the conversation as like a top 4 Dragon Quest game. And I think that's significant enough to at least put it in C, even though I tried to put it in B. So it tells you how much I enjoyed it, because it would have been part of me, I had an inkling of that HD 2D remake belonging in S. That tells you how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's wild
So,
and very
um,
exciting.
yeah, it's a remarkable game, and I'm, for the record, not alone on this. I was worried that I would be, but everybody who I've talked to, read, everyone's like, yeah, this is a remarkable thing, and it's the whole reason. If there's any reason the HD2D remakes existed, this is the best reason. And that's saying something, because I really liked 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is like I don't know. It's a situation like Rachel Lee Cook and She's All That, except in that movie you could tell that she was good looking even pre-transformation. This one is truly an ugly duckling into becoming a beautiful swan, and I don't know how to feel about it.
I don't know. That was my pick, so that's where we're gonna put it. But Sollosi, you have the final pick, and you have a bit of a conundrum. It sounds like, because I stole maybe the tier you wanted to put this game into. And that's Dragon Quest Monsters. So where do you think it
Well,
goes?
this is hard for me for a couple of reasons. I'm a little underprepared for this because I did I mean for this to prepare for this podcast, I finished Dragon Quest 1 remake and started the Dragon Quest 2 remake and maybe read some old pieces I had written about Dragon Quest games to think about my feelings. But I have not touched Dragon Quest Monsters in something like 20 years. Um I have an original copy for the Game Boy Color. I I briefly touched I think it was the first Dragon Quest Monsters Joker for the DS. I don't even remember if it was DS or 3DS. It's been so long. So like my uh my connection to the Monsters sub-series is somewhat limited. I have way more experience with recruiting monsters in Dragon Quest 5 and 8 than I do for any of the Monsters games. But the thing is like when you if you were to play this in close to its original context, you have to think of it as a response to Pokemon. because I think it came a couple years after Pokemon's Japanese release date. Um, it could outwardly claim not to be a Pokemon clone because there was a tradition of monster recruitment in earlier Dragon Quest games. It's technically a prequel to Dragon Quest 6 because it's about Terry and Millie as children, with Millie becoming abducted and Terry finding a way to recruit monsters to fight to possibly rescue Millie. I know it's more layered than that, but I'm for the point of this podcast. It's so and a lot of other Dragon Quest monsters games have these sort of prequel connections because the Game Boy Advance one, Caravan Heart, is about a young Kiefer from 7, and the most recent one, Dark Prince, is about a young Pizarro from 4. So the Dragon Quest games have series has used these monsters games as a way to explore the full range of Dragon Quest monsters, which are like a very very fun part of Dragon Quest sort of canon, and also a way to sort of be semi prequels to the main series games. And you'll notice I haven't set a ranking yet because I don't know whether to just like evaluate this game on the merits of my memories for playing through, I don't know, but somewhere between 10 and 20 hours of it 20 years ago, or do I evaluate the whole sub-series and its impact and its multiple games with dedicated fans, or do I take a more jaded view of this is just a an inferior Pokemon response? Like I don't think either of any of those one perspectives is a complete view. So because I've always been interested in these, and because I do have positive memories of the original one, and because I'm not allowed to pick C tier, which was my first inclination to for Dragon Quest Monsters, if I view it as a choice between B and D, I think I'm more inclined to give it B. And because this is a good Game Boy game, and I've heard just through the grapevine that like the best ones are the ones that we never got in outside of Japan. Like everyone really likes Joker 3 for the 3DS and the remake of Monsters 2, which were, oh shoot, it was Kobe and Terra on the English localization, but I think their Japanese names are different. Does that sound right?
Yeah, you're definitely right about the original names, but I don't remember what.
Yeah, or at least the original localization was Kobe and Terra, but I think it might be
Yeah,
different. Um, or maybe it was changed in the DQM2 remake. I haven't done the hard research into that game. So like this is the first game in what became a pretty meaty uh spin-off series, but I mean it celebrates Dragon Quest, the monsters of Dragon Quest really well, and that's a part of Dragon Quest I love. It lets you like my favorite monster in Dragon Quest 5 is the Great Dragon, which is in the last overworld area before the final boss. And for like decades, I think the Great Dragon did not appear in another game until 11. But in the meantime, they had been on the higher end of like the Dragon family tree and Dragon Quest monsters for the intervening uh 20 years or however long it was. So like for basically just celebrating Dragon Quest monsters, expanding Dragon Quest monsters, and for being a pretty good uh Game Boy Color game that spawned this whole spin-off, I think I am more inclined to give it B than D, so it's gonna be I think maybe very safely the last game in our long B tier here.
yeah, I think that that makes sense. I mean, I've only was able to make like a decent dent in this before the podcast recording, playing it for the first time. And just based on that, which I wouldn't call definitive because I didn't get to finish it, it seemed like a C tier pick to me. So that's definitely ringing true. I was impressed with the balance of it. I was impressed with the like overall, like being a prequel was already pretty charming. Like being able to play as a young Terry, I thought was cool. It was a hook that immediately got me at least a little bit interested in the story and the world. And then just like it's got unique progression, that idea that like there's this like kind of tournament you're working through to reach the top, and you have to like slowly work your way through it by like going in these like procedurally sort of generated dungeons where you can like that each have their own kind of set of monsters you can find and recruit there. I think that's a neat structure and a kind of general premise. Um, I think that the whole concept of monster breeding, I guess that's what separates it from Pokemon most definitively, and it's got that potential for overthinking and over planning that personally terrifies me. Like that level of kind of overthinking, I know I can get there, and I don't want to. Like I
That's
don't
why
want
I
to go
fall
into
off of
that
Fire
rabbit
Emblem
hole.
games half the time. Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems like a great game for that kind of sicko that just isn't me. But on that note, like I think having fond memories of the game and even like considering it a B tier for its kind of mechanical depth and its impressive balancing for its time and being like a Game Boy game. I think it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I have maybe an hour or two in this game, and I said earlier that games that are all about collecting monsters are not necessarily my jam. And so I know that this is an unpopular phrase on the internet nowadays, but I will say this: this game is not really for me. um, and it's true. I mean, like it's not the kind of game that's meant to appeal to me, but I do think that there is significance to it sort of being like like one of the beginnings of the expansions of the Dragon Quest universe. You know what I mean? Like in terms of the types of games that they're willing to make and things like that. And so I think that I guess maybe was the Taloon game or Torneco game the
Yeah,
first one. I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's the first mystery dungeon game, Tornico: The Last
yeah,
Hope.
yeah. But I think that for its sort of significance and even like sort of expanding the notion of what Dragon Quest can be, and also of kind of pushing the monster collecting outside of Pokemon, I think that there is something significant to that. And I think that it's beloved enough that it's spawned a whole lot of games. So I think B tier is appropriate for it.
Yeah, it was just hard to place it. Again, my first thought was C, but again, do I evaluate it on just as a game in a vacuum, or do I think of the whole series, or do I think of its nature as a spin-off? It was not easy, but given the choice between B and D, I lean B, and that's where it's going to be.
Awesome. Okay, well, that brings us to close to the end of our exercise. So we actually didn't end up putting anything in D tier. I'm curious, before we get to this, were there any games besides Dragon Quest II, which I know you both, based on the original, thought might have belonged in D tier? Anything else that you guys thought might have ended up in D tier?
I beg your pardon. I tried to put something in D tier.
So Sollosi thinks Dragon Quest 6 belongs in D tier. Bad take. Uh, what
I
about you,
think it
Alex?
belongs in C tier, but I was baiting out a veto, and it worked.
It worked. It
And
worked.
yeah, well done.
Did each of us successfully bait one of the others?
I think we
Yep.
did.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
so we're like a regular like weakness triangle of veto baiting in this episode.
I think it's because we know each other pretty well at this point, so it's not hard to know what's going to bait either.
Yeah, for me it was Dragon Quest 2 was alone down
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Again, in its original iteration. You will have no disagreements from me on that. But the last thing we need to do is we need to organize within the tiers, and I think it's easiest if we just go like tier by tier here. And I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of push on these in terms of where they belong. So let's start with S tier, which right now we have Dragon Quest 11, Dragon Quest 7, and Dragon Quest 5. I'm gonna guess that all of us probably would acknowledge, even though I know Alex, you said it's your favorite,
Mhm.
that probably Dragon Quest 7 goes at the bottom of S tier.
That's acceptable. Even
I
though
I
Would you
think
agree
we
with
I
that,
should
love
just we
Sollosi?
it.
should just stop beating around the bush, put 5 in the position 1, and then just move on
Okay.
to the A tier.
I mean, my preference would be, but I don't know about you two. Do we want Dragon Quest 5 to be at the top?
I will
5
not
and 5 and
object.
11 are my 1-2 with a margin too narrow to have a real opinion on.
Okay.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. And 7 is too recent of a play for me
Yeah.
that I think it
Okay.
can go to the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, and as much as I love 11, we all know that 5 for me is the top. So that's set. Let's go to A. We've only got 2 games here, and I like the order of it already personally. Dragon Quest 8 and Dragon Quest 3. That would be my preference to leave it there.
These are such wildly different games that were so important for their eras, and I
Yeah.
believe they're both appropriately placed. So I'm just gonna pass and let you guys figure it out.
Okay.
Um, cause like, all right, if I'm thinking of like the NES version, like, okay, fine, I'll give Dragon Quest 8 above it. I have a feeling if I like played through the entirety of like the Super Famicom version or the HD 2D, I would probably like 3 better than 8. But I also haven't played 8 in so long that honestly, Zach, you can have 8 above it. Honestly,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Just wearing you guys down with a long podcast. This is the reason they always go long. Okay. This is where I think things get a little interesting. So in B tier, we have Dragon Quest 4, Dragon Quest 9, Rocket Slime, and Monsters.
Oh boy.
4 at the top, or
4 at the
or
top
we
I'm
can
fine
still move it
with.
to A tier. No, we can't. But
We absolutely cannot. So I'm cool with 4 at the top, but the other 3 are the ones that I have the least experience with, so I don't feel like I should speak on this too much.
Compromise. We move 4 to A and 7 to A. Huh? Right?
Make me unhappy on both
No.
fronts.
I love 4, but I really love 7.
I think 4 at the top of B tier is good, even though I would have preferred it be like at the end of A instead.
Yeah.
Okay.
And these other 3 though, it's like 3 games that I almost entirely played in the decade of the 2000s. I mean, I guess just because not there's so much more to 9 than there is to Rocket Slime, I would rank that ahead. Uh, but they're I mean they're entirely different types of games.
Yeah.
Um,
For me, kind of where I'm coming from is I would sooner recommend Rocket Slime to somebody than 9. I mean, beyond my personal attachment to Rocket Slime is kind of what would maybe put me to put Rocket
Yeah.
Slime ahead of
I
it.
mean, I will say that I've spent a little more time with Rocket Slime and I enjoyed that time with it more than 9, but how fair is that because of, when I played it,
I mean I would put 9 ahead of Rocket Slime, but I do not feel so strongly about it that I'm insisting it. So we can if anything, I would want to put Monsters maybe second behind 4 just because of series impact, but that's also the game I've played the least of these.
Hmm.
Yeah, maybe we can just switch Rocket Slime and 9 from where we have it now and just leave it alone because I think Monsters is the one that we in this of all 12 games in this list that we have the least attachment to as a trio.
Yeah,
Am I
that
Yeah.
makes sense to me.
So 4, Rocket Slime, 9, Monsters. Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
And then C tier, we have Dragon Quest 1, Dragon Quest 2, and Dragon Quest 6. I'm going to personally argue that Dragon Quest 1 goes at the end, just based on at least my argument about Dragon Quest 2, the HD 2D remake element of it, but I also understand why then 2 might go at the end for you guys, but I don't know how strongly you feel about that.
I mean, based on my first, say, 3 hours of Dragon Quest 2, I'm okay making this order 2-6-1 if you guys are okay with that.
I would certainly put 6 on the top here, but I also, Zach is working in a different context that
Yeah.
that it's I guess it's okay. Like,
Yeah, no, it seems like weird to see it ahead of 6 and 1, right?
yeah.
Um, but again, I sort of like thinking about it contextually. Yes, for 38 years, there's one existed, but now what's the definitive version? And that to me is enough to push it ahead, even of 6 for me within this tier.
I mean, it's not like that I have that much of an attachment to 6. I do think it's a B tier game, but yeah, you know what? Do your thing, Zach.
I
Okay.
think that putting 2 in the lowest tier that we're recognizing, but at the top of it is a way of nodding to this recent remake that
Yeah.
is that's fine by me, but I'm not going to get upset about us ordering the C tier of a of a of a podcast episode tier list.
Are you sure? This is very serious business.
It's not like I'm on a 4-hour game of the year episode. That's serious business.
I'm never coming on this podcast again if we don't put 6 on top of C. No, it's fine.
Okay,
If
so
Hades 2
we
isn't
have
a top 3 game this year, then I am exiting the Secret Santa.
So we do have our final list now. So in S tier, we have Dragon Quest 5, then 11, then 7. In A, we have Dragon Quest 8, then Dragon Quest 3. In B, we have Dragon Quest 4, Rocket Slime, 9, Monsters. In C, we have Dragon Quest 2, Dragon Quest 6, and then Dragon Quest, the original. I gotta say, while there are some things that I slightly disagree with here, I don't think this is nearly as controversial as the last tier list we put together.
No, I would certainly not say so.
No, well, people will like individual listeners might look at the Dragon Quest game they feel the most strongly about, and if it's not exactly where they want it, then they can let us know in a various Discord channel or comment section. But I don't have any major qualms with this list.
I think if we get
I
hate
don't
mail
either.
from anybody, it's probably gonna be Wes.
That might be true.
I'm sorry, Wes. I would have bumped it 2 spaces if I could.
Well, thank the two of you so much for coming along on this journey with me. It didn't go as long as I thought it could have. Yeah, but we now have the official Retro Encounter ranking of all 12 of the Dragon Quest games that we talked about. You can let us know how you feel. You can leave us 1-star reviews. Tell us we all stink. You're welcome to do any of the above. But yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about what's coming up next, since we are running a little bit long here. After in 2 weeks from today, we are going to do another year in review episode, but this time we're doing it a little bit differently. So for years, when Sollosi was in charge of the podcast, we would do a year in review of that current year. We've switched that over to random encounter. So if you still want to get that experience, I'm still hosting that episode, but we thought it fit better on random encounter. So instead, we're still doing a year in review, but it's going to be a 1995 year in review. So we're going 30 years back, which honestly is just like a totally arbitrary number that I knew when I wanted to do this again next year, I could do it for 1996. So it'll probably be a recurring series for us. And I'm excited to dive into that. But then after that, and we just decided on this today, our next game journal is going to be on 13 Sentinels Aegis, I don't know, Rim, which is that Vanillaware game that came out, like 6 years ago, 5 years ago?
It came out in
Sollosi, you played it.
2020, but they had been teasing it at least since E3 2016.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan of that game.
Yeah, I
And
adore that game. I think you guys are gonna have a lot of fun playing it. Oh boy, what do I say about this thing? It has my favorite Groundhog Day scenario other than the film Groundhog Day,
that's
and
pretty high
that's just
praise.
one of its 13 chapters.
That movie rules. So,
It'll
yeah.
be tough to beat out Majora's Mask for me, but I'm open to it. I'm excited
Yeah.
to play it.
Okay, now this is one of my great gaming shames, and if I ever was on a confessions episode again, I'd have to mention it. I have never played Majora's Mask. That's one of my biggest video game gaps, right up there with still waiting for Hideo Kojima to make a good game. Dropping the
Oof.
Sollosi lore here.
So we didn't have a lot of spiciness on this episode, but you saved it for the end. Very nicely done.
Maybe someday he'll
So-
make one. I don't know. We could remake Snatchers.
So if you want to get in touch with us, let us know how you feel about Hideo Kojima games or Dragon Quest games, more likely. You can email us retro@rpgfan.com. You can also follow RPG Fan on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, Blue Sky, Twitch, YouTube, RPG Fan or RPG Fan Com in most of those spots. We also have a Discord that's called RPG Fan, obviously. We also have a shop, which you can get to by visiting rpgfan/shop or on the homepage if you want to buy any merch, mugs, things like that. The t-shirts are very high quality, so if you want to rep us or support us, you can do it that way. We also have 2 other fine podcasts. One is Random Encounter, which is every Monday of every other Monday, where they usually talk about current events, new reviews, things like that. The other Monday is Rhythm Encounter, which features RPG music. You can review us on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere that you find podcasts, you're probably going to find us there because, well, you're listening to us. And let us know where we can find I'm going to let you guys know now where to find the individual panelists, starting with you, Aleks.
You can email me at alexfraniczek@gmail.com.
And Sollosi.
You can find me on social media as @Evoker for Dogs on Blue Sky, Instagram, or RPG Fans Discord.
Perfect. And if you want to get in touch with me, email's best. That retro email works, or ZachW@RPGFan.com. I'm also on our Discord as ZachW. Again, thank the two of you so much. Even if Sollosi put Dragon Quest VI in the wrong tier, and
you put
Aleks
Dragon Quest
put Dragon
4
Quest
in the wrong
8
tier.
in the wrong
Yeah.
tier.
I mean, we all just did our best to bring balance to the Force, but alas.
The most important
Alas.
thing is that S tier is correct.
I
Yeah.
agree, but which is a shame that 7 is there, but beggars can't be choosers.
Well, thank you both. Thank you, listeners. Good night and good luck.